Hello, welcome to Local Anesthetic Podcast, your weekly injection of mind-numbing local news. This is our first episode of 2021. We're recording on the 4th of January at about 5:25, or I like to think of as neighbours time from when I was a kid, although I think that was 5:35 actually, after Home and Away on ITV. I digress. This is episode 330 now. Lovely, just a lovely sort of round number there, Rob. 330. How are you, Rob? Because I think tonight we're going to get the big announcement from Boris. Another big announcement at 8 o'clock.
Yeah, Alex, it's an exciting time.
Tier 5.
Yes, so I've lived under tier. I'm slightly disappointed because I feel I've missed out on tier 1. I've only done tiers 2 to 5. But
you haven't lived, mate.
How am I doing? Well, apparently, I think the trouble is if you're under tier 1, you have lived and you can continue living normally. How am I doing? Well, obviously it's a new year. There's a lot of exciting things that could happen. So far, it's just been mainly shit. And first day back at work, which has been actually okay. I think it's always nice because it's usually quite quiet. But yeah, it's strange, really. It's just I can't really describe how I'm feeling. It's just kind of like middling.
What I wonder, Rob, is if tonight we're going to hear about what tier 5 is, where does it end? Is there a tier 6? And if there is a tier 6 in reserve, what is it?
It's just difficult to speculate because I don't even know what tier 5 is. I mean, we said last episode.
Do you know what tier 6 is, Rob? I know what tier 6 is. I've got inside information.
Right.
Tier 6 is cull of the firstborn.
Right.
Herod measures.
So that's both of us gone then?
Yeah.
Right. Oh, well, that's how the podcast ends.
Anyway, look, is there any news before we crack on with this episode?
No, I don't think so. People are still submitting stories, which is always appreciated, but no, there's no significant news, I don't think.
No, I don't blame people for not bothering to contact us at the moment. I was just looking about Herod, and it was called the Massacre of the Innocents.
That's right, yeah.
Was it the first? What was it? No, he just killed baby boys. It was the first. What was it? It was.
I think it was the first. I think it's the first male born of the family. I think that's right.
Because to stop the sort of lineage.
Because of Jesus.
To stop the lineage passing down. Was it?
Yeah, I think that's right. Am I completely mixing up my Bible stories?
I think you are.
Wasn't Herod looking? I thought Herod was looking for Jesus, and obviously Jesus was the firstborn. I thought that was the idea.
I think you're right. Yes, that was it. So he thought the best way, kill all the boys in Bethlehem and its vicinity who are 2 years old and under, because then he thought, well, if I do that, I'll eventually get Jesus.
This is a very morbid start to the podcast.
Sorry.
Slaughter of innocent children. Happy New Year.
Well, I think that's tier 6. I think tier 6 is a blood sacrifice to the gods to ask them to take away COVID.
I imagine that Matt Hancock will dress up as the child catcher from Chitty Bang Bang and go around the country with a wooden cart collecting all the children and taking them to...
No, Rob, we can't talk about... No, we can't. I don't think we can talk about massacring children anymore. But I think what they might do as a blood sacrifice to the gods is offer up Ken Livingstone in the middle of Trafalgar Square in a pyre.
He's been very quiet recently. Have I just missed out on his activity?
That's because probably somebody's saying to him, Ken, whenever you open your mouth, you keep talking about Hitler. Just shut up.
Yeah. I mean, surely at the moment, if there's going to be a blood sacrifice, it really should be Piers Corbyn. I mean, he needs to shut the fuck up.
Him as well, yeah. Right, anyway, look. Rob, we're coming to 5 minutes in and we're just talking absolute shit. This is a podcast all about news. Weird, funny, sinister, strange news. Called Local Anesthetic, listeners, because for, well, a good majority of our 330 episodes, we did very much focus on local news. But local news has really done a bit of a death over the last year, especially with COVID, and it's harder to find those kind of stories. But Rob, there are stories from all over the world, as you shall discover today. Look, I'm just going to start with a quick story from Derbyshire. Here, Rob.
Okay.
Because I had to read this. I just loved it. Headline, it's only short, 3rd of January by Helen Pidd, who is the North of England editor. Derbyshire police pan stupid hikers for defying COVID rules and getting stuck in snow. Did you hear about this, Rob?
I didn't hear about it was in Derbyshire. I heard about the people who are going to the Brecon Beacons, a couple that actually trekked from London to Wales in Tier 4.
What is wrong with people? Anyway, first they used drones to shame people walking their dogs in the Peak District using the first lockdown. Then they dyed a quarry pool black to make its toxic blue waters less inviting to furloughed swimmers. Now Derbyshire police have turned their attention to stupid hikers who ignored a snowy weather forecast and got stuck on one of the county's highest passes this weekend. The force's rural crime team lambasted the owners of more than 200 cars, Rob. 200 idiots who drove to the top of Snake Pass, a Trans-Pennine road between Sheffield and Manchester on a Saturday, and then expected the police to rescue them with their magical snowmobiles. And so what they put on their Facebook page, the police, they said, we'll deal with what we can, but our underpants aren't on the outside, and we can only knock so much common sense back into society. Now, that is a police force, Rob, at the end of its tether, no?
Alex, I really hope that at some point there are two police officers just sitting in the car, and one just turns to his colleague and goes, we could just leave them there.
Yeah, oh, God, yeah. And they deserve it. I mean, look, they said that many of those parks on the top of the pass were not only ill-equipped for the weather, but ignoring government advice to exercise within their own tiers. They said, would you like to hear more of their rather sort of, what's the word? It's not sarcastic even, is it? It's kind of it's almost passive aggressive. Well, exasperated, I think. It seems like many didn't have the common sense to check the forecast, dress themselves suitably, check they had a capable vehicle and or driving skills, never mind the fact they perhaps shouldn't have been stretching the advice given by the government so as not to overburden our NHS. Never mind though, just ring the police, expect them to come along with their magical snowmobiles. Of course, with our superpowers we can simultaneously deal with similar situations in the Goyot Valley, Mamnik, Gerber Pass and others. And we're COVID proof, didn't you know? Joking aside, please don't be stupid. It shouldn't need a greater explanation than that. I like this from the police.
But as you rightly say, they're just exasperated. They're just frustrated with people's idiocy. And I know that people are desperate to get out of their homes, but this is the whole point, people. What are you not understanding? The reason you're supposed to stay at home is to stop the infection. Oh my God, what is...
Rob, you're sounding like Matt Hancock. It's okay.
No, Alex, I'm genuine with my emotions.
Yeah, of course you are. Right, ABC News now, Rob. I love this story by John Hanworth. Man with chainsaw chases McDonald's employees, steals food and drink.
Oh, we've all done it.
Well, a man has been arrested after entering a McDonald's establishment and stealing food before chasing employees with a chainsaw. Rob, just think, this is terrifying.
So, hang on. Had he gone into the store to, I'm guessing, to intimidate the restaurant workers?
No, right. Here's what happened. The incident occurred at approximately 3:30 p.m.
Right.
Which is obviously 3:30, the exact number of this episode, just saying. At McDonald's franchise in Portland, Maine, when the Westbrook Police Department received a report that a male suspect was chasing people with a chainsaw. That would make you spit out your donut.
Yeah, it certainly would. Absolutely.
According to an investigation by the Westbrook Police Department, the suspect, 26-year-old Alice Sweet of Portland. I mean, Alice Sweet, could there be any more inappropriate name for this person wielding a chainsaw?
Sorry, is this a woman?
No, it's a man called Alice Sweet.
Okay. Sorry, we're talking about a man called Alice Sweet.
Yeah, Rob, isn't there a famous rocker called Alice something?
Cooper?
Yeah. Yeah, he's a man.
I mean, well, that's true. Yeah. Good
point,
so
take your discriminatory views out of here.
I don't know, Alex. I mean, it feels like that man has been bullied at some stage in his life. His name is Alex Sweet, Mr. Sweet, okay? Maybe he was just trying to prove that sweet he is not. He
sounds like a character from a Roald Dahl book.
He does, absolutely, yeah.
Right, anyway.
This man was on the edge, Alex. This man was experiencing his own falling down.
Yeah. So he entered the McDonald's with a chainsaw and went behind the counter where employees were actively preparing food. He then reportedly revved the chainsaw before stealing a drink and some food. Now, Rob, when I read this, what it reminded me of is many years ago when I used to play Grand Theft Auto Vice City. This is exactly what I would do. I'd get a chainsaw and I'd go into some fast food outlet and start intimidating the hacking the restaurateurs to death who work behind the counter. It's a video game. Please don't call the police. But isn't this just another example of GTA come to life?
It really is. Yeah. I do worry for this man though. He's obviously got a. I mean, how do we know that he wasn't just trying to cut his burger?
Well, it's a good point, not a euphemism either. When the manager confronted the suspect in the parking lot, now you've got to admire that manager. Confronted him in the parking lot, showdown.
This is a manager at McDonald's, okay? I mean, I think he'd have every right to walk away from that situation.
Totally. That is beyond your roles and responsibilities. When the manager confronted the suspect in the parking lot, the suspect began chasing the manager with the chainsaw. The suspect also used a chainsaw to damage 2 vehicles that were at the restaurant. Responding officers were quickly able to locate the suspect, and he was hiding. He was hiding in a tyre store close to the McDonald's when they arrived on the scene. Now, like in tyre shops, you might have that stack of tyres. I like the idea that he hid himself in the middle of the tyres.
And slowly the police officer took off one at a time. Yeah, he's not here, still not here. Oh, there he is.
There he is, exactly. He then attempted to run from the police on foot, but was caught and arrested without further incident just a short distance away. He was charged with the following: robbery, criminal mischief, refusing to submit to arrest, violation of conditions of release. No injuries were reported in the incident, and authorities did not disclose Sweet's motives. Comments?
Can I just say, by the way, and I know I think it's only in the US, but criminal mischief really seems to play down the crime.
I agree. Yeah, I know.
Criminal mischief just sounds like he's up to some hijinks and he got out of hand. Not he was threatening staff with a chainsaw.
Yeah, I mean this is bad, Rob. Whichever way you look at it.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of comments, over 240. So I'll try and pick out some good ones. Paul Village says, "We Trump supporters are not crazed druggies."
Okay.
Minx Voodoo says, "Sometimes the last name comes first. Sweet Alice must have been real hard in school."
See?
Yeah, I know, you're right. So you're saying that this is all due to him being bullied at school, Rob?
I'm saying this is years of suppressed anger from being bullied at school, and the only outlet he could find was to purchase a chainsaw and apparently threaten staff at McDonald's.
Rob, I love this comment. Again, Rob, there's some weird coincidences going on here. Alice Sweet walked into that McDonald's at 3:30 p.m. This is the 330th episode.
Right.
This comment, which I love, which is my favourite one, is by Bethlehem Steele. And we've just been talking about Herod's massacre of the firstborn in Bethlehem. His comment...
Sorry, Alex. Sorry, are you just going to glaze over the name Bethlehem Steele?
It's brilliant. Oh my God, that goes on our list.
Of course it goes on.
What a fucking name.
name.
I need to write...
Wow.
Okay. Right, this comment is brilliant. "I've been to Portland," which is where this story is based, "and I won't go back. Right. The whole downtown and surrounding area is loaded with these Antifa wannabes and hunter-like crackheads everywhere. It's like San Francisco in a freezer and a wet shelter rolled into one. The place smells like the inside of Hillary's thighs on the hottest day of the year. Typical liberal city." Now, Rob... But what's even better is the follow-up comment from somebody else who says, "You're talking about the wrong Portland, you idiot." Typical conservative.
Is it not Portland, Oregon?
No.
Oh.
So what a complete dick to write that.
Yeah.
And somebody else says, have you smelled the insides of Hillary's thighs on the hottest day of the year? And Bethlehem Steele replies, "She walked by me once, those thighs rubbing together sounded like truck tyres on a rumble strip. God, it was scary. I haven't been right since."
I mean, I have to say, Alex, I was slightly distracted because I don't know why, but I've been, over the last 2 minutes, thinking of a mini-series called Bethlehem Steel, which basically consists of the disciples forming a gang of, I don't know, maybe hired assassins.
No, what about vigilantes?
Vigilantes, and basically they go out enforcing the word of Christ with swords, obviously, hence Bethlehem Steel. And they go to like pagan countries and spread the word of God by force.
They could be hired mercenaries or vigilantes. Yeah, you're right. Killing, massacring innocent Iraqi civilians and then getting pardoned by Trump.
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking sort of, in the age, back in sort of, the age of Judea, not within the last maybe 20 years.
Oh, okay. But nevertheless, I think it would have an A-Team type feel to it.
Absolutely. It would either be a van or a wooden cart.
Face is strange. If you've got some time on your hands, that Bethlehem, so you could mock that right up. Right, not the massacring Iraqi civilians, I will say that. Rob.
No.
I've got to... Now, Rob, I've got two stories, right? I've got one now and I'm saving one for later. Both of them come from more highbrow publications. Both of them are extraordinary and quintessentially LA podcasts in their own way. Both of them are top draw stories. This is absolutely astonishingly amazing. It is from the New York Times. It is from December the 16th by Maria Kramer. Headline: Cookie Monster mural puzzles artist and enrages property owner.
Right. But Alex, on a completely unrelated note, can I just throw this in? Apparently, I learned today the Cookie Monster's first name is Sid.
Right, Sid the Cookie Monster. So hang on, here's another weird coincidence. You were reading about the Cookie Monster today?
No, I heard on a podcast, they have a section where they find random facts, and one of the facts was apparently the Cookie Monster's first name is Sid.
Rob, this is all rather strange. The coincidences are amassing in a way that suggests we may be approaching some sort of tear in the space-time continuum, and different universes are bleeding onto each other.
Well, I did actually happen to read a story from there's a US pastor who's saying that apparently the universe is due to come to an end, this week. So, the stars are aligning, Alex. If that's the case, so be it.
Can you send me that story?
Do you really want that story?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I'd like to be able to prepare, Rob.
Yeah, I'll find it. I'll send it across.
Because obviously, if the world's going to end, I need to write a will. Anyway,
Alex, I think the world.
Rob, don't take away my what I want to do for myself. Right. Anyway, Joshua Hawkins. Right. So here's the story. Joshua Hawkins said the request seemed pretty weird, but the dark-haired man who made it was offering cash and a lot of it. The man said his name was Nate, and he wanted Mr. Hawkins, a local artist, to paint an enormous Soviet-style mural of the Cookie Monster. Now, can I just say, an enormous Soviet-style mural of the Cookie Monster would be a blinding episode title.
Absolutely.
Anyway, it goes on. The Cookie Monster, the vocarious, pastry-loving Sesame Street creature, and 3 Russian words on this mural on a commercial building in Peoria, Illinois. When the job was done over Thanksgiving weekend, the man paid in full, and Mr. Hawkins, 33, proudly displayed the mural on his Facebook page, and it is indeed a Soviet-style, massive, gigantic mural of the Cookie Monster. But Mr. Hawkins learned C can also be for caper. Less than a week after the mural went up, Mr. Hawkins said he received a call from the real Nate Comte, who said he had never commissioned the Cookie Monster mural.
Brilliant.
He also made his feelings about the mural on his property very clear. He swiftly used white paint to cover over it. In a brief interview, Mr. Comte expressed fury over the attention the apparent prank had gotten from national and international news outlets. "This isn't news," Mr. Comte said, and then added an expletive. You can choose your own, Rob. "I'll give you a headline. Man paints his own building wall." So he's pissed.
It's good headline, that.
"I don't hate art," he said, "but I don't know what the hell that was." Mr. Hawkins said Mr. Comte threatened to call the police, even after he explained that he'd been bamboozled. Mr. Hawkins denied that he concocted the mural himself. Mr. Hawkins, who apologised to Mr. Comte on his Facebook page, said he was still trying to figure out the real identity of the man who hired him, whom he described as tall, fit, and in his 40s. He has scoured social media for clues, kept an eye out for fake Nate's truck, and wondered about the connection between the man who hired him and the real Mr. Comte. "I'm telling you, I've been trying," Mr. Hawkins said. "I don't know if it's some friend of his or a pissed-off neighbour or some distant relative that's pulling a prank on him, but it's curious." One thing Mr. Hawkins is confident about, the fake Nate knew the real Mr. Comte. He knew his building, he knew his name, and he knew when he was going to be there and when he wasn't going to be there, Mr. Hawkins said. The episode has spawned an untold number of theories about who may have commissioned the mural. "We just like the mystery of it," said Jen Gordon, Executive Director of Arts Partners of Central Illinois. "Whoever was behind it, they certainly put a spotlight on the area." Mr. Comte raised the mural, despite the consternation of some in the local arts community who expressed sadness and even anger about its removal.
Right.
Mr. Comte told the Journal Star, which is a local paper, that he'd received hate mail for painting over the vibrant colours and the Russian words, which put a Cookie Monster twist on an old Bolshevik slogan. So it's a picture of the Cookie Monster, Rob, with the kind of sun's rays coming out behind him. He's reaching up his arm, grabbing a cookie, which has kind of rainbow things coming out behind it. Behind him is what looks like a kind of cityscape, but it looks a bit apocalyptic. And then there are some big words in Russian which read, peace, land, and bread.
I'm sure we might feature some of the conspiracies, but is there a possibility that, given that we know the prevalence of Russian hackers over the last couple of years, is it possible they've completely changed tack and they're trying to target small town America by painting American-themed characters
and Rob,
in a Soviet setting?
No, not painting American-themed characters, desecrating American cultural icons and turning them Soviet. Cookie Monster, Rob, is now a communist.
I mean, Alex, have you ever watched Sesame Street? I've always suspected that.
No,
I mean,
they're
always preaching socialism and harmony. Fuck that. That's not what America stands for.
And equality, Rob. How dare they?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, Sesame Street was woke long before woke was a word.
Yeah, I must admit, I often thought that whilst watching it as a 3-year-old. It wasn't for me.
Mr. Comte confirmed that he had created a Facebook page called Graffiti Replacement Mural, inviting people to post an image to replace the mural he had whitewashed. The owner will select the willing design and hire a local artist to paint it, so he's trying to appease the locals' anger. In retrospect, Mr. Hawkins said he could have asked more questions. Mr. Hawkins said the man never showed him any permits or proof he owned the building. He did not say what he did for a living. He never gave his full name. He only provided the last name Comte in a 2-sentence email that he sent Mr. Hawkins with a copy of the design. An email sent to the account seeking comment was not answered, neither was a message left on the voicemail of a phone number provided in the email. Mr. Hawkins said he first met the man at an art show about a year and a half ago. He did not hear from him again until he called him the week before Thanksgiving to commission the mural. I was really hesitant at first because it's pretty big, Mr. Hawkins said, but the man was offering enough money that Mr. Hawkins would be able to hire a large crew to help him, so it must have been a sizable amount of cash.
I have to say, though, as pranks go, this is brilliant.
Oh, it's genius.
It doesn't really harm anyone.
Well, no. Mr. Hawkins asked him what the Russian words meant, and the man replied, peace, land, cookies. I thought he was opening a bakery, Mr. Hawkins said. He last saw the man on November 29th when they met for lunch, where Mr. Hawkins said he showed him pictures of the mural. Later that day, when the mural was finished, Mr. Hawkins called him and texted him to come see it, but he never responded, and he's never heard from him again.
Brilliant.
This reminds me of the kind of story you might get like a short 45-minute sort of mini documentary on Netflix about.
Absolutely, yeah. I can easily see that. Maybe with cameos from the Cookie Monster.
Okay, Rob, you got some stories for us.
Yeah, I've got 3 this week. The first one is very short, but I just happened to come across it, but I thought I might feature it. So it's from The Week, which is a publication which sort of summarises the week's news.
I know what The Week is.
Yeah, that's more for the benefit of the other listeners, Alex, not just yourself.
Well, the poor, uneducated listeners who can't drag their heads out of the Star, the Sport, or the Sun. The Week is actually what we call a magazine.
I mean, I wouldn't have gone to that extent, but I mean, I think it was implied. Like I said, only a very short story. There is no journalist. It's from the 30th of November. So it goes back to last year. Austrian village of fucking changes its name.
You get these stories all the time. I mean, how the fuck they lasted this long in the first place, I'll never know.
Well, I mean, I like the fact that, I think it's also the fact that what they've changed it to.
Okay.
So, the residents of an Austrian village named Fucking have voted to change its name after enduring unwanted attention from tourists. The village of 100 residents near the German border will be renamed Fugging.
Fugging?
I don't think that's better. Yeah.
That's not that different. It still sounds stupid.
Fugging, which just sounds like a euphemism for fucking.
Yeah, they should have changed it completely. But maybe this is because there's a lot of storefronts, Rob, where they have to change the lettering, and this way they only have to change 2 letters. Do you see?
Very clever, Alex. Hadn't thought about that. So tourists had flocked to the village for a photo ops next to the entrance sign, annoyed locals. said,
Losers.
I really don't want to do it.
Who the fuck travels all the way to a place just to have their picture taken next to a comical sounding road name or city sign? I wouldn't do that, Rob.
I might. Annoyed local said, I really don't want to say anymore. We've had enough local media frenzy about this in the past. I mean, to be fair, if it's a village of 100 people, they probably do have had enough of it.
Yeah.
Right, moving on. So, my next story, again, this, I think, attracted a lot of attention. And it is from the Scottish Sun, which I think had the best coverage. And the story is by Katie Pagan from the 23rd of December. Jet ski Romeo released from Isle of Man jail after daredevil trip, but won't be spending Christmas with his girlfriend. Do you know about this story?
No. Oh, no, I do. Okay. Yes, this guy who broke COVID rules to... Is that the guy?
To jet ski across the Isle of Man.
But that's all I know.
Okay. So, jet ski Romeo, Dale McLaughlin...
Can I just say, Rob, sorry to interrupt, as well as Bethlehem Steel, Romeo Jet Ski... Romeo Jet Ski or Jet Ski Romeo is a brilliant name. He's sort of a very 80s vibe. He lives on Miami Beach, that kind of thing.
Oh God, you're absolutely right. And he just spends it. He doesn't need to work. He's made some money in private finance. Now all he does is just ride around his jet ski, just romancing women, and that's it.
2 private eyes, Romeo Jet Ski and Bethlehem Steel. I'm sorry, that is a fucking cop show right there.
Absolutely. Again, with a very 80s vibe.
Yes.
But they don't, they don't do things by the books. They go their own way, but they always get the job done.
Exactly.
So jet ski Romeo Dale McLaughlin has been released from jail just in time for Christmas after serving less than half of his 4-week sentence. The roofer, 28, was all smiles as he was escorted by prison staff to boarding a boat from the Isle of Man to HM, Lancashire this morning. The dad of 2 from Irvine, Ayrshire, was released from the Isle of Man Nick after breaching the island's COVID entry regulations to see his girlfriend. Lovesick Dale had just 10 minutes of fuel left when he arrived at Randy Harbour in a desperate bid to visit Jessica Radcliffe earlier this month.
Sorry, Randy Harbour? Is this a joke?
Ramsey Harbour.
Oh, I thought it was Randy Harbour. I thought that was perfect. Right, okay.
After fears he would miss Christmas with his children, he arrived at the sea terminal just after 8 a.m. this morning to begin his journey home to Scotland.
Rob, this is another Grand Theft Auto come to life. Do you remember with Grand Theft Auto? With Grand Theft Auto, you get those different districts, right, or different parts of the map, but it wouldn't let you get to different bits. You could, like, the bridges would be blocked until you'd completed certain missions, and you'd inevitably try and get a boat or a jet ski and try and do it by boat. To try and do it over the sea if you could, but then the police would come and the army.
You get the fastest car, you get a run up, you try and get across that gap. You're absolutely
but you'd also try it the jet ski way, and then you'd get shot out of the water. So this is another case of that.
Yeah. So he was seen carrying his backpack, which he had taken on his treacherous 25-mile jet ski journey across the Irish Sea on December 11th.
Treacherous 25-mile jet ski journey is a really good episode title.
Yeah. But it's understood he didn't get to see Jessica before leaving the island.
She wasn't in.
Unfortunately, she'd taken a private plane and gone to see him. His girlfriend, who is self-isolating, had called for her lover to be released in time for the festive period. And she's vowed to marry him over a romantic gesture if he asks. So what she's saying is, I'm happy to marry you, but you have to propose first.
and all because you were willing to go on a jet ski and try and come see me.
Alex, it's a romantic journey. I mean, so...
I'd be more impressed if he tried to swim it.
Yeah, good point, yeah. Well, there's a quote later. He assumed the journey would take just 40 minutes, but was set back by bad weather. Which, can I just say, by the way, the Irish Sea is notorious. It's one of the roughest stretches of water. So thinking you could do it on a jet ski is really a brave endeavour. Did
he hit this sort of invisible border in the Irish Sea we've had to construct, with all this bridge and stuff?
I mean, there is a possibility. I can imagine that Boris Johnson's secret is just creating like a perspex wall along the Irish Sea. I mean, it's possible. Let's be honest.
It really is.
However, the Loved Up
That's
lad
why we're all in
efforts
lockdown.
appear to-
It's a cover while he does it, so nobody can see what he's up to.
I mean, why stop there? Why not just build it around the entire UK? That would really stop the French fishing boats.
Yes, Rob, yes.
It's the equivalent of Trump's border war. It's the UK's Perspex
Dome.
wall.
Dome. They're going to put it over the whole of Britain.
And there's a lot of jokes about that, by the way, and obviously reference to The Simpsons. However, the Loved Up lad's efforts aren't going completely unrewarded, as Jessica revealed she would tie the knot with Dale if he proposes. The mother of two explained, "I've had messages from all over the world. People from Italy have sent pictures of jet skis saying, 'This is for your boyfriend,' showing our support." I don't know how a picture of a jet ski is showing support.
I imagine that people that ride jet skis are a sort of rather idiosyncratic bunch who see anybody else who rides a jet ski as a member of the same sort of community or fraternity, Rob. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
There's that sort of camaraderie between people who, fellow jet ski riders. They're all part of one. There's probably sort of an international jet ski club. I want to be part of that.
Yeah,
actually, I'm feeling a bit jealous.
It's like camper van owners
Yeah.
and caravan owners who wave themselves as they pass on the motorway. Really, really strange people. People from Ireland have said what he did was heroic. You should marry that man.
So it's not heroic. It's not heroic.
Of course it
It was
is.
selfish. So it
Dale
wasn't.
reportedly splashed out on a jet ski just one day before he made the trip.
But Rob, why was he going to see her? It wasn't for any selfless reason, was it? It wasn't because she was ill and he was trying to provide her care. It was for a shag.
Well, I mean, Alex, that's pure speculation. As he said, he wanted to see his kids. I mean, there is a picture of her in a very low-cut top, which really doesn't, I'm not sure it's relevant to the story. Don't go looking
what's
it
the
up.
headline?
But I think if you said jet ski Romeo, that should do it, especially if you look at the sun. So Dale reportedly splashed out on the jet ski just one day before he made the trip to see Jessica 30, despite never driving one before and being unable to swim.
Rob, is your headline, because I love it. Jet ski Romeo, shaken and stirred. Jet ski Romeo felt like a crappy James Bond as he got lost on terror ride across Irish Sea, but says, "I did it for love." I'm sorry, that is brilliant.
Yeah, no, I don't have that. But Alex, let me just reiterate that last sentence.
She's rather attractive, Rob.
I'm not yet. Absolutely, Alex. I was trying to, it's not relevant to the story. Yes, she is, but again, she's taken and possibly.
Do you think they did this for publicity? Because there's a lot of pictures of her posing on this, and they look like the kind.
Alex, it's the son who've clearly gone on to probably her Instagram and just taken pictures off there. So again, just to say. So Dale reportedly splashed out on the jet ski just one day before he made the trip to see Jessica 30, despite never driving one before and being unable to swim.
What? Sorry, what? Sorry, who the fuck is crossing the Irish Sea on a... Sorry, Rob, you have to be... Sorry, let me calm down. You have to be an imbecile to risk crossing the Irish Sea on a jet ski.
Yes.
Let alone a boat or anything else without being able to swim.
So I'm going to finish the story just with this very last sentence. So a source told the Mail Online he was a nice lad but was thick as a brick after assuming the which is just a beautiful quote. So he was a nice lad but was thick as a brick after assuming the 25-mile excursion would take just 40 minutes. Because obviously he managed to get to the harbour but had basically run out of fuel and then walked to see her, but obviously never got there.
I don't know though, I feel like, remember when Jesus was on the cross, Rob?
Right.
And didn't Pilate ask, there was always that thing about, there was a tradition, because it was Passover, wasn't it? To release.
It was Passover where they released one of the...
and people chose Barabbas. Is that right? Yeah. I feel like we should do something similar with this guy and Dominic Cummings. Put them both up on a crucifix and ask which one do we want to release for which is the worst crime, driving to Barnard Castle under restrictions and claiming it's for an eye test, or this guy on the jet ski. This guy's really the equivalent of Barabbas. I think I always think of Barabbas probably I always think Barabbas probably wasn't very bright. I don't know why, but that would make Dominic Cummings our Lord and Saviour, Rob.
Yeah, which well, it's an angle. Certainly. One
of the great things has been since the pandemic has been the gallows humour and everything else, our way of coping with it. And I think my favourite of all that has to have been after the Dominic Cummings thing was revealed and somebody very quickly knocked up a Photoshop of a Specsavers advert and it just said should have gone to Barnard Castle.
Yeah. I think that's one thing that I've really enjoyed, and I hate to do it, but I've been using the LA podcast to look at Twitter a lot more, and I don't know what it is, but people's meme game, I should say, has really stepped up over the pandemic, and it's really helping me through.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right, my very last story, and I'm really sorry, it's one of those stories, but I had to feature it. So this is our regular story from the Mirror. It is from the 24th of December, so it's a Christmas story. It's a bit late. By Kellyanne Mills, who's a regular on the podcast. We really should invite her on.
What paper did you say it was?
It's the Mirror,
Alex. Of course it is, yeah.
Yeah, so are you ready for this?
Of course.
And this amazingly, this relates directly to what you were just saying. Mum sees face of Jesus in Brussels sprouts whilst peeling veg for Christmas dinner.
Rob, does this not add weight to what I said earlier? This is now coincidence number 4, which is unusual amount, as we are now approaching the well, presumably maybe with the universe being slowly sucked into some sort of black hole or something. I don't know, but there's something happening here, Rob. We've talked about Jesus a lot today. It's second coming, Rob.
I mean, a lot. I mean, if he is in the guise of
Dominic Cummings, who also looks like a Brussels sprout, weirdly.
Well, that is true, actually. I can't disagree with that. So Mum got a shock as she prepared Christmas vegetables, not a euphemism, when she spotted the face of Jesus staring back at her. Shauna Robert declared...
How can anybody say they saw the face of Jesus looking back at them when nobody knows what Jesus looked like? What she means is, I saw the face of some Renaissance picture of Jesus Christ and what they thought he looked like staring back at me from a Brussels sprout. Is that correct?
Alex. I'm not going to try and... I'm trying not to do this woman a disservice, but I think her knowledge of Renaissance artworks is probably quite limited.
Right, okay.
So Shauna Robert decided to spare the Brussels sprout from the pan after doing a double take. The 34-year-old did a double take. Just repeat the same sentence. The 34-year-old did a double take as she prepared to whip the bottom off the leafy veg and score across.
Is that a euphemism?
That's a problem. I don't think so.
She saw. Did you say
score
she
across?
Score across into the Brussels sprout.
Score across, yeah.
Oh my God!
As you do when you
this is getting freaky now.
To score across in it when she spotted the holy lookalike. The mother of two was stunned to spot Jesus' likeness on the basilica's bottom, including eyes, nose, and mouth, complete with trademark flowing locks.
To admit, Rob, when we met and you used to have that long hair, I thought you looked a bit like a shit Jesus, sort of a blonde grungy version. But you never know, you know. Do you think your Jesus, Rob?
Is a name for a... no, Alex, I really don't. I can imagine that shit Jesus would be named for a grunge band. I don't know why.
It's a great
name. Shit Jesus and the Crappy Disciples. Right. The mother of two was stunned to spot Jesus' likeness on the basilica's... Brassicas? What does that relate to? Is brassica something to do with a sprout?
No idea. I don't like sprouts.
Okay. On the brassica's bottom, including eyes, nose, and mouth, complete with trademark flowing locks.
Am I allowed to look at this?
Describes herself as spiritual. In a second, Alex.
Okay.
I don't want you to be amazed by the similarity.
Okay, I'm just bringing it up so it's ready. Okay, right, okay.
Okay. Shauna, who described herself as spiritual, called her son Jack, 14, and 10-year-old Michael over to have a look at the bizarre discovery. After taking a snap, the Jesus lookalike was spared from her dinner as Shauna didn't have the heart to cook him.
So do you think she called them over and said, I can see Jesus Christ in these Brussels sprouts? And one of her sons says, no, Mum, it's just the way my trousers hang.
No, I think they say, no, Mum, you need to lay off the cooking sherry. Shauna from Waltham Abbey, Essex, which is just down the road from me, said, I was taking out the sprouts, topping and tailing them, and putting across the bottom.
Right, okay.
Again, the sprouts. When I saw the face, I remember thinking, oh my God, it could be Jesus.
Oh.
What with it being so close to Christmas. I didn't have the heart to cook him, so I left the sprout in a corner cupboard, and he sat there for a little while. After he stopped looking like Jesus, he got put in the recycling bin.
The equivalent of the tomb, Rob.
Oh my God, Alex, you're absolutely...
What happened after 3 days? After 3 days, what happened? And now, stalking...
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, that's why all the... I'm looking at the picture now, Rob. I've got to. Ready?
Yeah, go ahead.
It looks vaguely like a picture of a human face with sort of dark hair, eyes, a sort of tash and beard, perhaps. But that could be Noel fucking Edmonds.
Oh my God. That was exactly what I was about to say.
See, Rob, it's happening. It's happening.
Jesus,
fucking hell.
This is getting scary now.
We might not make it through the night, Rob.
Well, no, if we think our Lord and Saviour is Noel Edmonds.
What if we're the only ones left now, Rob? What if it's happened? Everyone's gone and it's only you and me now left on the planet. Would we try and start a new civilization, Rob? I mean, I know it's biologically impossible, but we could give it a shot.
I mean, Alex, that wouldn't be my first thought, I'll be honest. It may be somewhere down the list.
What's your first thought?
But,
go into game and steal a PS5? What's your first thought?
No, Alex, we can't go that far. There's coronavirus. I know. I'd obviously head to Sainsbury's and steal all the alcohol.
Right. Okay. And then we try and start a new civilization.
Exactly. Yeah. Maybe get a prawn ring from Iceland.
A porn ring or a prawn ring?
No, a prawn ring. Unless they've taken a very, very different approach to marketing. Do you know what, Alex? I'm going to leave this there because listeners, go and look up the face of Jesus on a Brussels sprout and you can decide whether it looks like our Lord and Saviour or Noel Edmonds.
Okay, Rob, I promised you this story earlier. It's from Vox magazine.
Okay.
It's extraordinary. And it was so good that I had to sort of save it as a sort of PDF and go through it and highlight it because it was too long to read the whole thing out. But it's absolute. This, Rob, should... and I'm amazed somebody hasn't made this into a documentary yet. I really hope they do. This is extraordinary, Rob. Right, it's by Sean Illing. Great piece of journalism from the 10th of December 2020.
Right.
Headline: How a New Hampshire libertarian utopia was foiled by bears. Now, this story is all about libertarians, Rob. What do you know about libertarians?
Very little. Libertarians, I believe, but I think my knowledge of libertarians comes from again from QAnon. So these are people who I believe follow a very different set of rules. They believe that they can live independently to state legislation and
yes,
they kind of follow their own path.
Yeah, it's like an ultimate form of conservatism, really, isn't it? Libertarians seek to maximise autonomy and political freedom, emphasising free association, freedom of choice, individualism and voluntary association. They share a scepticism of authority and state power, but some of them diverge on the scope of their opposition to existing economic and political systems. There's a definition. So, in the mid-2000s, Rob, in a small New Hampshire town called Grafton, Matthew Hongalt's Hetling, author of a new book titled A Libertarian Walks into a Bear, describes what he calls the boldest social experiment in modern American history. The experiment was called the Free Town Project. It later became called the Free State Project, and the goal was simple: take over Grafton's local government and turn it into a libertarian utopia. The movement, this is real, this happened, was cooked up by a small group of ragtag libertarian activists who saw in Grafton a unique opportunity to realise their dreams of a perfectly logical and perfectly market-based community. Needless to say, utopia never arrived. So
what? Interestingly, so I'm assuming from what they're telling me is that they were, obviously this was in the US, so they got tired with the American dream and thought, well, we can do this again. We'll start over.
Yes. So this is the author talking about the book. He said there's a national community of libertarians that's developed over the last 50 years, and they've never really had a place to call their own. They've never been in charge of a nation, of a state, or even a city, and they always really wanted to create a community that would showcase what would happen if they implemented their principles on a broad scale. So in 2004, a group of them decided they want to take action on this deficiency, and they decided to launch what they called the Free Town Project. They sent out a call to a bunch of loosely affiliated national libertarians and told everyone to move to this one spot in the United States and to found a utopian community that would serve as a shining jewel for the world to see that libertarian philosophies work not only in theory but practice. And they chose this town, Rob, in rural New Hampshire called Grafton that had fewer than 1,000 people. They showed up and they started working to take over the town government and get rid of every rule and regulation and tax expense that they could. They needed a town that was small enough that they could come up and elbow the existing citizenry out the way, somewhere where land was cheap, where they could buy up a bunch of land and then host their incoming colonists, right?
Okay.
So, because basically part of what they wanted to live in a place that didn't have zoning regulations, so they could set up a non-traditional housing situation and not have to go through the rigmarole of building or buying expensive homes or pre-existing homes. You see what I mean?
Yep. Okay. Yep.
But as the people who actually lived there already, who were now colonised, found out, this non-traditional housing situation meant a camp in the woods or a bunch of shipping containers or whatever. They brought in mobile homes. They formed little clusters of cabins and tents. There was one location called Tent City where a bunch of people just lived in tents from day to day. They all united under this broad umbrella principle of personal freedom. But as you'd expect, there was a lot of variety in how they exercised.
The trouble is, I mean, that's all well and good, but as you rightly say, it's a nice ideal, but you need infrastructure. People expect things like lighting, drainage, that kind of things, roads.
But Rob, what about the people who lived there? Because apparently when they first showed up, they hadn't told anyone they were doing this, with the exception of a couple of sympathetic libertarians within the community. All of a sudden, the people of Grafton woke up to the fact their town was in the process of being invaded by a bunch of libertarians, and they were pissed. They had a big town meeting. It was very shouty, very angry meeting, during which they told the Freetowners who dared to come they didn't want them there, and they didn't appreciate it being treated as if their community was an experimental playpen for libertarians to come in and try and prove something. I guess this is how the indigenous Native Americans must have felt, Rob. But,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
The people of Grafton weren't massacred. They couldn't pass some of the initiatives they wanted. So, Rob, they tried unsuccessfully to completely withdraw from the school district and completely discontinue paying for road repairs. They failed in declaring Grafton a United Nations free zone. But they did find a lot of existing Grafton residents who'd be happy to cut town services to the bone. And so they successfully put a stranglehold on things like police services, road services, fire services, and the public library. Cut them all to the bone. It's like austerity, Rob. It's like a Conservative's wet dream.
Yeah, yeah, it really is. Okay, it sounds like a living nightmare at the moment.
What do you think happened, Rob?
Well, as these things often tend to do, I'm guessing it fell apart quite quickly. Well, apart from the bears you mentioned.
By any measure you can look at to gauge a town's success, Grafton got worse. Recycling rates went down, neighbour complaints went up, the town's legal costs went up because they were constantly defending themselves from lawsuits from Freetowners, the number of sex offenders living in the town went up, the number of recorded crimes went up, the town had never had a murder in living memory and had its first two, a double homicide, over a roommate dispute.
Nice.
There were all sorts of negative consequences that start to crop up, and meanwhile the town that would ordinarily want to address these things with a robust police force instead found that it was hamstrung. The town only now had one full-time police officer, a single police chief, and he had to stand up at a town meeting and tell people he couldn't put his cruiser on the road for a period of weeks because he didn't have money to repair it or make it a safe vehicle. So basically,
Jesus.
Grafton became a Wild West frontier-type sort of town. But this is where the bears come in. It turns out, Rob, if you have a bunch of people living in the woods in non-traditional living housing situations, each of which is managing their own food in their own way and their own waste streams in their own way, you're essentially teaching bears in the region that every human habitation is like a puzzle that has to be solved in order to unlock its calorific payload. So the bears started to take notice of what was going on, and there was no way for people to deal with it. So in true libertarian fashion, some people were shooting the bears, some people were feeding the bears, some people were setting booby traps on their properties in an effort to deter the bears through pain, others threw firecrackers at the bears, others put cayenne pepper on their garbage so that when the bears sniffed the garbage, they would get a snout full of pepper, etc.
I mean, that's extraordinary.
The bears became increasingly aggressive. They'd never had a bear attack in their history, this place. And then there was a bear attack when a woman was attacked by a black bear in her home, and a few years after that, a second woman was attacked in a neighbouring town. There has since been a third bear attack in the same little cluster in the same region of New Hampshire. Nobody has been killed, but people have been pretty badly injured. And he finishes by saying, the author of a book I think I need to read, I think this is true for libertarianism and really all philosophies of life. It's very easy to fall into a trap of believing that if only everybody followed this or that principle, then society would become this perfect system. I think there's a good lesson in that for us all, Rob.
Absolutely, Alex. I couldn't disagree with that at all. You know, I know that there's a lot of people out there at the moment, mainly Trump supporters, who feel that Trump was building an ideal world. But I think if he if he had the opportunity to really build his utopia, I think you'd see the true manifestation of hell on earth.
Well, if we're not there already, Rob. Right, listen, sorry about that, but we now need to move on to our... You're not playing the guitar this week, are you, Rob?
Nope. Or ever again.
Have you given up?
I haven't had the time to practice this week. That's all it is, Alex.
Well, luckily, Rob, I have, and it is time for our listener story of the week. And who's it from?
Guys, you did say you'd practice this week, right?
Rob, I could play them. Yes, I'm not going to say anything. I think that was highly advanced.
Okay. Right. So the story this week is from Amy. It's a follow-up story.
Right.
It's from one of yours, actually.
It's not about the sex doll, is it?
It is.
I've got that story. I just didn't read it out this week. That's fine. The listeners need to know.
Okay. So Amy sent it in from the Lad Bible. I've taken, although it seems like the Lad Bible picked up from Daily Star, so I'm taking it from the Daily Star. It is by Tom Towers, great name.
But I will say, other more reputable publications did print this story too. I just want to be clear on that.
Sorry, Alex. I don't think there's many more reputable publications than the Daily Star.
Well, for example, The Mirror is where I got the story from.
Right. Yeah. Right. Okay. So, bodybuilder who marries sex doll reveals she's tragically broken days before Christmas.
Yep.
It's such a great story.
Well, the trouble is for The Mirror, it didn't tell me anything more than that. So I hope there's a bit more detail. But anyway.
I think there's a bit, yeah. So a bodybuilder who wed his sex doll in a groundbreaking ceremony has revealed she's tragically broken, potentially scuppering romantic plans for their first Christmas as a married couple. Yuri Tolotsko from Kazakhstan now faces a tense wait to see if she can be repaired in time for the festive period, with all of her bits in good working order.
Nobody's repairing his sex doll. Why does he just buy another one? He can buy another one off the rack.
Alex, I've got two questions.
Yeah.
One, what has he done to it? And two, it just means that he wants her to be repaired so he can fuck her at Christmas. Right?
No, Rob, no. I think it's clear that he did say in the original article their relationship is not about sex.
No, Alex, it is about sex. There's no way it's not.
No, it's about companionship, intimacy, love, Rob.
He said her safe return will be a gift for them both. Yuri tied the knot with Margot at a ceremony attended by guests in November. He first met her at a nightclub, as we've speculated, in the bins around the back. And the pair were due to get married in March this year before the coronavirus pandemic threw the world into turmoil. The ceremony was delayed a second time after he was attacked during a transgender rally, which we also featured in the Kazakh city of Almaty on October 30th.
Do you know what the next story is going to be? That she got repaired. Because do you remember he also wanted her to have plastic surgery? Or sorry, he said she wanted to have plastic surgery.
Yeah.
The next story is going to be she gets plastic surgery and she runs off with another bloke.
So describing their relationship, Yuri told the Daily Star, in general, I began to be jealous of Margot. Many men would like to imagine the same. After the wedding, I began to show her less to people. I forbid her from Instagram.
Sorry, so he's become this controlling partner over a sex doll. You're not going on Instagram!
She wasn't doing anything on Instagram. She's an inanimate object. What was she doing?
This man
She was just staring at it.
This man is ill.
Ah.
Yeah?
I did this a long time ago. This is when he forbid her from Instagram. Maybe I'm being too selfish. But that's the beauty of Margot. That I can do this to her and she won't mind.
I could do this to her. This just shows it. Yeah.
Alex, but that's my
The beauty of Margot is I can control her completely and she doesn't care, unlike a regular woman.
This is why I'm worried about her being broken. What's he done?
Well,
What's he done to her?
I think it's quite obvious what he's done.
So on Christmas Day, January. On Christmas Day, January. Oh yeah, okay, right, yeah. It's obviously orthodox. On Christmas Day, January 7th in Kazakhstan, he said he might stay with Margot and order steaks and sushi or have some fun with friends. In the meantime, Yorgi will have to wait for her to get repaired. He added, she is broken. Now she's being repaired. She's in another city. When she recovers, it will be a gift for us both.
Rob, you know, like when a man's wife sort of leaves him and he has to cover and he tells like friends and family that, she's just a bit under the weather. That's why she can't come to the phone. I think she's, yes. I think she's left him and he's had to make up this excuse that she's broken and needs repairs. She's walked out, Rob.
He did say she's in another city. Maybe she had enough of it. Maybe she's had enough of his controlling ways, ordered an Uber, got in the taxi and left.
Exactly.
So, sharing footage of the wedding day on November 25th, Yori wrote on the Instagram, "It's happened, to be continued." And that's it. There's nothing. It doesn't. I thought it mentioned something about her being broken, but it doesn't. There's nothing else in here.
Okay. Well, each to their own, Rob. Look, that brings us to the end of another jam-packed episode of LA Podcast. We look forward with a mixture of eager anticipation, yet trepidation, a lot of trepidation if the world is ending this week. I don't know quite what we'll do about that, how we record. We'll work that out when we'll cross that bridge when we come to it, Rob.
I mean, Alex, we can record. I think no one's going to hear it. That's the issue.
Well, you're assuming that we both survive.
A good point. Yeah, fair point.
We can be found on our... where am I going with this? Oh, yeah, we move ever more forward. So, look, we look forward to the mixture of eager anticipation, yet trepidation, to our next episode of LA Podcast, which will be episode 331, as we move ever more forward, Rob, like a
man on a jet ski, realising that he's unable to swim, getting trapped in the middle of the Irish Sea, only to drift safely into the harbour of the Isle of Man. Just like that. We move ever more forward to our next episode, which will be episode 331. As I say, we're on our website, lapodcast.net. We're on Facebook at facebook.com/LApodcast. We're on Twitter at @LApodcast. We're on Spotify. If you want to send us a story to be featured on LA Podcast, you can email it to lapodcast.net@gmail.com. That's lapodcast.net@gmail.com, or post it on Facebook or tweet it to us. We should also mention that Rob and I have another podcast, completely separate, called Daft Talk. Come through on the same feed as LA Podcast to make things nice and easy for you. But we record that bi-weekly and LA Podcast bi-weekly. So next week will be Daft Talk, episode 22, I believe. And a week after that will be episode 331 of LA Podcast. Now, as we like to do nowadays, Rob, we end with the headlines that never made it. How many do you have, Rob? I have 4 this week.
Okay, I have 5. So I will start.
I'll let you start, yeah.
So I will start. Man climbs airplane wing right before takeoff in bizarre video.
Right, okay.
Yep.
Pennsylvania Farm Show seeks butter sculptures for virtual contest.
Sorry, how do you make a butter sculpture? Wouldn't it melt like immediately?
That seems like a really stupid question, Alex. People make ice sculptures. You get some butter, you put it in the fridge, then you sculpt something out of it. I myself, as you can see here, am sculpting a vole out of some unsalted butter.
Right, is that what that is?
Well, not at the moment, but it will be. Right. Just need to find it in there.
Menasha woman texted her dad that she was being stabbed and police swarmed. She meant swabbed for COVID-19.
That's quite a spelling error.
It's a great story, but basically the story was that. So,
yeah. Urban Outfitters forced to recall thousands of flammable candle stands.
How the fuck did that kind of mistake get made?
Yeah, I know. I mean, literally, they didn't realise that the material they were made out of was flammable.
Talking of unfortunate mistakes, my next headline never made it, Rob. Obituary printed for Southern Utah man who is very much alive. Yeah, he opened the paper to find his obituary.
We get that every so often. We get people who realise that they've been declared dead when that's not the case.
Yeah.
Man changes name to Celine Dion after having one too many drinks. That's that story, though. There's nothing else to it. I mean,
it's better than Alice Sweets as a name.
Yeah.
And my last headline, which never made it, Space Force. You know Trump's Space Force, Rob. You haven't heard much about it.
I know what they've been changed to as well.
Space Force soldier demoted after skipping training in order to get a PS5.
Oh no! I thought okay, it wasn't where I thought it was going. They're changing the name
To what?
They're now being referred to as Guardians.
Space Guardians.
Yes, I thought just Guardians. I saw the story just before.
Guardians of the Galaxy. Right. Okay.
Yeah. And my very last story, or headline, I should say. Russian woman marries her briefcase.
Why aren't you reading that out?
I can do it next week if you like.
Is it good?
When I was on the week's website, I have to see that story, and I just thought that's a great headline. I didn't look at the story, but I'll see if I can find more details.
Look at the story to see if it's worth reading out. And actually, Rob, I'm pleased you mentioned the week, because I do need to apologise to all of our listeners that Rob offended earlier in the episode by suggesting that they wouldn't know what the week was. I think Rob suffers under the sort of delusion that all of our listeners are sort of very sort of low, sort of poorly educated people in very menial professions. He said this to me off air, and I'd like to say that it's not the case. We have a range of listeners across the intellectual spectrum.
Yeah, I mean, none of that is obviously true. I think it's just the fact that I've been reading stories from the Daily Star and the Mirror, so, my brain's been slightly distracted.
Okay. We thank you for listening, everybody. We've really appreciated your company. Like I said, we're going to be back in a week's time with Daft Talk, episode 22, and a week after that, episode 331 of LA Podcast. God bless.
And keep it local.